the Everything But Politics podcast.
Welcome back to the Everything But Politics podcast. Special episode today as we welcome a man we have admired for a very long time. And it's really cool to have the opportunity to welcome him to the show. So without wasting any more time, Jordan Syatt, welcome to Everything But Politics.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I have to ask, so do you guys legitimately never talk about politics?
Never on this podcast?
Yeah,
Maybe
everything
outside
but.
of this, but never on here.
And Jordan, we've had some guests that have, gone off and have done that.
The borderline, yeah.
Yeah, so we tend to try to skew away. But Jordan, I while learning about you and the developments in your life, it appears this is going to be one of your last podcasts before pivoting to your new home and having your very own podcast room. Tell us about how development is coming along.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I will never build a house again. It's a real it's a huge blessing, but it's wild. Like, I think I'd rather just move into an already built house going forward. We've been doing it now a little over a year at this point, and it's just an unbelievable amount of wasted money for sure. But I'm excited because I've had a podcast since 2018, and it's always been virtual, which is great. It's fun, but I'm very excited to have people in person, to come out and in person. And so we're building out a podcast studio on the property, and I'm just excited. Like, my favorite thing. It's funny. We spend so much of our time building up our social media to connect with people that aren't in person, that now it's something really special when you can be in person with someone. So it's I'm just excited about that.
And it's exciting too, because being in Dallas, it's a great location for people to come visit. You're right in the middle of the country.
Yes.
Whereas if you were in LA, or I'm in Florida or New York, if they're not on that coast, that's kind of way more challenging. But for you to be right doggone in the middle is quite convenient.
Yeah. Hopefully it works out well. We'll see. But I'm hoping that convenience will help be able to bring some people, and maybe you guys one day can come stop by and do an in-person podcast with me. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
for
sounds
sure.
Amazing.
But we might have to talk about politics on my podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So Jordan, my first question for you, firstly, the work that you and Alyssa did was quite amazing. I love that little series you guys put together.
Yeah.
How is she doing, by the way? Yeah.
She's killing it. She's almost 100 pounds down now, which is
amazing.
So we're going to have her come back on the podcast and do a YouTube episode with her, like, once she's reached her goal. But she's just been killing it. She's very, very close, almost 100 pounds down. It's been extraordinary to watch.
Awesome. Alyssa, if you're listening, keep going. We love it. Keep up the great work. So my question for you, Jordan, is when you dealing with anyone really, and they don't love fitness, they don't enjoy, like Gary Vee talked about openly with you. He's not a huge fitness guy, but when it comes to mindset, how do you have them zoom out and think of it more as, building a business, building a relationship with your family, building a relationship with God, and making it a lifestyle that's not just like short term, I'm trying to hit this by then, but this is part of your life?
It's a really good question. And I think I've been through many phases as a coach trying to figure this out. Like, what do I say? How do I say it? What do I do to get someone to be consistent with it? And honestly, the thing that I've had the most success with is being brutally honest from the very beginning and saying, quite frankly, it doesn't matter if you like it or not. You have to do it. And it's basically because a lot of coaches make the mistake of saying, well, you just need to find what you enjoy. You need to find the exercise you enjoy. And I think that's good advice for some people. But I mean, if we look at even just in the United States, never mind the rest of the world, like, we've got a real problem, like a real obesity problem, real health problem. And there's going to be a lot of people who they hate exercise. In the same way, a lot of kids hate doing homework. There are some kids who like doing homework, and they'll be the one in the class who'll be like, excuse me, Mrs. Parker, you didn't collect the homework. Fuck up. Right. Yeah. But like, if a parent had a child say, hey, I don't really like doing homework, so I'm not going to do it, hopefully the parent would say, tough shit, you've got to do your fucking homework. Like it's just what you have to do. Same thing with exercise. If you don't do it, you're going to suffer severe consequences as a result of it. Now, from here, we can get into how much do you need? How intense does it need to be? And we can have conversations around like, you really don't need that much, nor does it need to be that intense in order for you to reap a tremendous amount of the benefits. But I've found starting off with just rip the band-aid off. Let me just be fully honest with you. And let's just get to the point of understanding if you don't do this, there's going to be major problems down the road. So I don't care if you hate it, and you shouldn't care either. It's just something you need to do. And that for me has set up an open line of communication because they know I'm not lying to them anymore. I'm not, oh yeah, like you'll get addicted to it, you'll love it eventually. Like maybe they will, but maybe they won't. And it doesn't matter either way because they've still got to do it.
Yeah. Well, enjoy. I'm sure you've heard all like the bullshit excuses. Oh, like when you're a parent, it's so hard to work out this and that. But now that you are a parent, do you believe any of that bullshit?
Listen, it's very hard. It's very, very
Yeah.
hard.
Okay.
But like,
Yeah.
listen, like after my first daughter, I was getting workouts in at midnight because that was the only time that I could do it. And so in order to help feed, because we were trying to split the feedings. So I wanted my wife to be able to get some sleep. So I would do like the 1 or 2 a.m. feeds when she was a newborn. And so rather than working out when I normally worked out, I would work out at like 10 or 11 or 12 at night so that I would be awake for that feed without an issue. And it wasn't ideal, and I wasn't setting any world records, and my workouts weren't as good as they had been if I was doing them at the normal time and like with less stress, but I still had to get them in. So there's no question it's way harder.
Yeah.
But that's not the question to be. The question is, okay, it's way harder. How do I do it? That's the question. Like it's if you're falling on the excuse of, well, I'm just not going to do it just because it's harder, it's a very poor life strategy. And listen, like some people have it way harder than me. Like I don't know how single parents do it. Like single parents, like most wild amounts of respect. When I tell you, so I have a 2-year-old now, and I have like an 8-week-old, and getting out of the house just to go for a walk it should be an Olympic sport. It is unbelievably difficult. It's like 45 minutes to get everyone ready and get out and all this stuff. It's really insane. And we have my wife and myself. I don't know how a single parent would do it. But I've had clients, single moms and single dads, who are working a couple of jobs while raising kids and getting their workouts in, and it's fucking hard, but they're able to do it. And sometimes the workout is just like going for a walk. That might be the workout that day. That's okay. That's fine. Yep. Sometimes the workout might be a 20-minute like quick density workout. That's okay. But you've got to do it. You don't have to be setting records every time. You don't have to be lifting so hard and heavy that like you're going to burst a vein out of your forehead. Like it doesn't have to be that hard, but you've got to move. You've got to do something like as often as possible.
For sure. And firstly, Jordan, mazel tov to you and your beautiful wife on the lovely family you guys are creating. It's quite inspiring to see. But, I think that goes back to what my original question was, just having it be a part of your life and, you doing those midnight workouts, making it something that just like, you're not trying to achieve a goal. You just want to be healthy. And I'm sure that now you're a parent, your entire perspective on longevity and being around for a long time has shifted. Can you share maybe what has shifted in the, 2 years that you've been a father?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a background of being a competitive wrestler, a competitive power lifter, competitive jiu-jitsu athlete. Like, so my whole life has been competing in sports, and like I love competition and I love sports and all of that. But at this point, I just want to be able to be here for my daughter. Like, for example, like when I put my daughter into her crib, I want to be able to bend over without my back hurting, and I want to be able to put her in there. Or even, it's funny, I didn't realize this was going to be a thing. I took a video of me stepping over. We had this like little playpen for my daughter, and it's basically like a little jail. Like she can't get out of it. But like I took a video of me getting out of it, and the number of and she was on my shoulders. So I stood up, she was on my shoulders, and I stepped over it. And you need a little bit of hip mobility for that. And you need like all the stability to hold her. And the number of adults who are like, what I would give to be able to do that. It's just, And to me, it's just, that's just normal. I stand up with her, I get over the gate. Like some people wouldn't be able to do that without, like, they need to put the kid down, they need to support themselves, it would be a whole big deal to get out of the pen. So at this point, it's literally just, the goal is to be healthy and happy and here. That's it. I don't care if I'm hitting deadlift personal records. I don't care if I'm gaining slabs of muscle. I just want to be able to move. And also, selfishly, I'd really love for my daughters to be super impressed and proud of me, like to show off, like, oh, this is what my dad can do. This is what my dad can do. Like, that's obviously a major goal as well, like to have your kids like bragging about you. But it's really just about, like, the goal is being here. That's the goal, and being able to do well while I'm here, not just to sit through it and watch, but to be an active participant.
Well, and Jordan, now that you are a parent, Merrick and I growing up, like I've mentioned this before, my mom laughs, but like we ate garbage, right? Like bunch of food, going to the baseball, look for concessions. How do you like stop that from happening? Like with all the red dye and like the Skittles and all, would you allow your children to eat that? Like what, I feel like there are so many like things, should you do it, should you not do it? Like especially if they're on a soccer team and they're giving like treats out. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so this is a huge topic right now with the dyes, the food colorings, all this stuff. So we can really go into this. I'll start by saying one of the major talking points for this argument is that these are ingredients that are not allowed in other countries, whether it's in the EU or the UK. That is a lie. They are allowed there, and they're often just called different names. They just have a different name for it. Now, with that being said, there are some things that are allowed here that are not allowed there, or they're more regulated. And there are some things that are allowed there that are not allowed here. So it's important to have this conversation, because right now, especially with the dyes and the food colorings and like the ingredients, a lot of people are using this as a scare tactic to try and say, like, oh my God, like this is really dangerous for us. It's like, listen, the other countries often allow the exact same ingredients. They just have a different name for it. And they have things they allow that we don't, and vice versa. So that's number one. In terms of, here's the way I think about it. There was a girl that I went to school with when I was younger. I went to middle school, high school with her, and I also went to college with her. And her parents were so strict. Her parents were she had to be home by a certain time. She was like never allowed to drink alcohol. Like it was a big deal, super strict. We went to the University of Delaware, which is a pretty big school, like 16,000 undergrads. It's very difficult to be known on campus with that big of a student population. She was known on campus because she went the complete opposite direction. As soon as she didn't have the parents controlling everything she did, getting belligerently drunk, going wild at parties, like people knew who she was because she did the craziest shit. And so this is just basic human psychology. If you are over restrictive and if you try and don't let your kids do anything, good luck. Like, good luck when they get off on their own and now they have access to do whatever they want. It's a much better strategy to teach them moderation. How can you expect your kids to live in a moderate lifestyle if you don't let them live in a moderate lifestyle? If you don't showcase what that looks like, and if you don't allow them to practice it? It's if you bring them up on an extreme, then you better believe they're going to live in an extreme until hopefully one day they're blessed enough to find that middle ground on their own. But to answer your question, like, I give my daughter like desserts. I mean, a 2-year-old, like she has chocolate chips or ice cream or whatever. There are rules around it. Like there's amounts into how much she can have. And we'll reward her if, like, for example, she obviously, she's 2, she fucking loves ice cream. And so if she didn't eat her dinner, then she doesn't get ice cream. Like, because what she would learn is she could just skip dinner and then have ice cream. If she doesn't eat the protein and the vegetables and all of that, then she doesn't get ice cream. And it's not like you're bad. It's just like, oh no, sweetie,
not today.
Your dinner, so we're not going to have that tonight. And that's it. But then if she does eat it and then we give her ice cream, inevitably she'll end up eating less ice cream because she's not as hungry. And then I'll be like, are you done? She'll be like, yeah, all done. And she like signs like all done. I'll be like, I'm really proud of you that you stopped eating when you're full, and reinforce that behavior. Like these are really important. Like I don't make her finish the ice cream. It's like, oh, you're done eating. Okay, amazing. I'm glad that you're finished. Thank you for telling me. And then we throw it away. And that's it.
That's unique. I like that. Yeah.
It's how it really comes back to, if you want your child to be moderate and like have a more healthy relationship with food and exercise and life in general, then you've got to model that for them. And I don't think just never allow. I mean, I remember I had a friend, his name is Chris. Rest in peace. Like one of the most amazing friends I had as a kid. His parents would never let him have soda. My parents let me have soda. Now in my house, like it was also, we had garbage. My parents were not like fitness focused, health focused at all. So we always had soda. When I tell you Chris would drink like an entire fucking case of soda when he came over because his parents wouldn't allow it, it's like it's that's what happens when you do not allow them to have anything. It becomes this extreme desire to go the other way. Whereas like, yeah, like one thing I plan on doing probably around when my daughter gets to around bat mitzvah age, like 12, 13,
Yep.
like she can have like little bits of wine, just a little bit at some family dinners a couple of nights a week, not a whole glass, and not like, definitely not more than that. But I want her to know there's nothing special about alcohol. And it's funny because the kids that I saw that were allowed to do this, they never got belligerently drunk. They never, because like they knew, they're like, it's not special, like it's not like taboo. And if something was wrong, they could call their parents and say, hey, like I need you to come pick me up. And the parents would do it, no questions asked. Versus if your parents were like, I'll fucking kill you if you do this, then they're gonna the ones who are drunk driving.
So true.
It's a big problem when you raise them in an extreme environment in an attempt to control them. It's like you've gotta have a more moderate perspective.
Well, and I think you said it best. We've had a lot of fitness people on our podcast, and so many of them are like strict to a specific diet. Like we've had Sean Baker on and some
I
other,
met
yeah.
Sean like a
No,
couple
yeah.
weeks ago.
And they all have like these specific things that aren't sustainable to like everyone in the real world. Like someone who is kind of like Sean Baker, Carnivore MD, Paul Saladino, your approach makes the most sense. And I was telling you, like our family restaurant's a chicken wing restaurant. Like, yes, I'm gonna have some fried chicken wings from time to time. So like it you have to balance it and not like want to like, fucking kill yourself for having some terrible food, some good food, the shit that tastes good,
Bro, I mean, even I don't like to hate on people. Paul Saladino is one of the guys where I get really upset because the guy wrote the book on carnivore, and he's now come out, and I don't think he did the math based on the timeline that he is talking about now. While he was writing the book, he was having major health issues and he stopped eating in that way, still sold the book, and now he's changed his entire approach. And this is the issue. It's like, and this is one of the problems with how social media works, is things go viral when they're very unique, when they're very different. And so people are incentivized to do these extreme protocols, whether it's nutrition or exercise or marketing, whatever it is, because it gets interest. It's like, oh, well, what is that? That sounds pretty crazy. I'll watch it. And then it leads to them lying and these unhealthy behaviors. And the truth is, like, the moderate, normal, unsexy things are what really work, and they don't go viral, but that's how you help people. So yeah, that guy, I would love to debate him. If he ever listens, and I doubt this would ever happen, I would love to have a formal and cordial debate with him, because he has caused unbelievable harm to the fitness community and just to people in general.
Now, what is it exactly that you think that he's promoting that is bad? Like I would say red meat is good for you, but what are some of the things that aren't so good for you that he promotes?
So the major thing is, number one, he has come out now, and I even made a video about this. He's come out now and he's openly said he doesn't agree with going full carnivore. He said that it has led to negative health issues, negative health consequences, heart palpitations, major issues, which is not a fucking surprise at all from anyone who knows even a modicum of nutrition science and physiology. He still sells the book. If he knows this, he should take the book off the market. He still sells the book. So that's number one. That's a major, major problem.
Mhm.
If he truly believes this and he's truly not in it for the money, take your book off the market and write another book that explains like actually the truth. What he's doing now is much better. It's still not right. It's much better. What he promotes now is a lot of meat, which is fine, but also fruits and like minimally processed foods. It's great. That's wonderful. I think
Yep.
a lot of protein, a lot of fruits. The major thing that I hate that he does is he hates on fiber and he hates on vegetables. And he'll say these vegetables are toxic and poisonous. I'm like, how many fucking people do you know who died or got fat from eating vegetables? Like, are you out of your mind? And he goes off on like, oh, glyphosate and oatmeal. Like, shut the fuck up. How many people have gotten sick and unhealthy from eating oatmeal? Seriously. It's without question. The data around oatmeal is gargantuan. If anyone had like the slightest bit of knowledge around the research on this, they would know how stupid it is and how sensationalistic it is and how fear mongering it is for him to come out and say something like glyphosate and oatmeal is something that you've really got to be worried about. It's like, no, what you've really got to be worried about is eating way too much food on a consistent basis and living a sedentary lifestyle. That's it. That's what you've got to be worried about. You got to be worried about smoking. You've got to be worried about drinking too much. You've got to be worried about chronic stress from working nonstop. These are things that we've really got to focus on, not the fucking glyphosate in your rolled oats. Like, come on. It's obnoxious.
And I can imagine you're not a big fan of Liver King either then.
That guy, I feel bad for that guy, man. Like I feel, especially when the emails came out about his steroid.
Yep.
Because when you read the emails, I mean, this guy has severe body dysmorphia. Like he's in these emails. This guy is built like a superhuman. He's shred, and yes, he was on like $15,000 worth of steroids a month, which is insane. But he's literally looks like a superhero. And in the emails, he's talking about how, oh, I don't like how I have extra fat here. And I don't like how I have, like, he's literally talking about how he doesn't like how he looks. Meanwhile, he looks like an actual superhero. So now it doesn't justify the lying. It doesn't justify all the terrible things that he did. But I have more empathy for him because I really think that he's insecure and he's I don't know what he's compensating for. I don't know. And he's absolutely a charlatan and it's not good. He's taking people's money. He's causing real harm. But I have that empathy for him because like that dude's really struggling. Like
totally.
Come on, dude. Look at that guy's lifestyle. Like that's not good. That's not normal.
I agree. And Jordan, I think that's what draws so many people to you is that you're clearly authentic, right? You tell it how it is. And like if you have a controversial take, you have no problem putting it out there. And I feel like that's one of the, main things. People have a tough time staying true to what they truly believe because they want, the proper engagement on TikTok or YouTube, or they want to fit in. But, you haven't done that. Where does that, sense of self-reliance and uniqueness come from?
That's a very interesting question. I'll start by saying when I was younger, I tried diving into that world. And to be fair, I'm really lucky because I started making content in 2011, and I hired a number of business coaches between like 2012 and 2015, and most of them were terrible, and they encouraged me to do this really shady, bad stuff. And there was all like I would try it, but it would always feel really, really bad. And I noticed that anytime I did something for money that didn't align with what I believed to be right, my anxiety would go up, my love for what I do would go down, my enjoyment in my work would go down. And it became something that at one point I was like, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And I just realized like I love my job so much more when I just am fully honest and fully myself. I am who I am. And even now, and we're not going to talk about politics, but I'll talk about politics on my page. And I'll talk about like my beliefs about various topics. And just the other day, I lost like over 1,000 followers because I said something political. And I'll tell you what, I think earlier in my career, I would have been really worried about it and it really would have bothered me. At this point, I'm like, I would have regretted not saying it. Like I would rather lose those followers and say it and know that I did the right thing versus have those followers and not say it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Absolutely.
totally. And you get those people, 4 years ago or 3 years ago when the shots were coming out, they're pushing this stuff. You get people endorsing a political candidate now or even in 2020, and they're clearly compromised. And when the time comes that like things begin to develop and evolve, they can't change their opinion because they're already in way too deep. So that's what I admire about you is that you don't give a fuck, to put it simply.
Yeah, and for whatever it's worth, like I also have no problem saying if I was wrong. And that's something where what you just said is really important. They're like they can't change their mind because they're in too deep. It's like they can, but they choose not to because it's unbelievably difficult to say, "Hey, I was wrong." Now, the magic of that is whether this is in the public sector or in an individual relationship, being able to say, "Hey, that was my fault. I was wrong. I'm sorry," is one of them. It's an unlock like nothing ever before. That was like such a Trump like nothing before. It's an unlock. It's the ultimate unlock when you can just say like, "Hey, I made a mistake." And realistically, isn't that what we want our politicians to say? Like, we just want, hey, just say you're sorry. Say you fucked up. That's all I want you to say. If if you have a relationship with a friend or a romantic partner, like I don't listen. I know you did it. Stop giving me excuses. Just say you're sorry. That's all I want to hear. And for some reason, people really fight that. And so I'll make one of my favorite things. I don't know if you know who Ben Shapiro is.
Of
One of my
course.
favorite things that Ben Shapiro has, he has an entire website that he continuously updates with all the mistakes that he's made and all the things that he said is wrong. And like, this is what I try and do somewhat frequently on my Instagram is like, let me tell you all the things I used to say that now are wrong. And I understand that. And let me explain why. It's like, it's the ultimate unlock because now it's number one, it's the right thing to do. And number two is people will trust you more when you are okay admitting when you've been wrong. Now people will trust you in the future because you can admit when you've been wrong.
Yeah, and the cool thing about, shows like this and your show and any show for that matter is that everything's documented and you can
Yes.
go a decade back. Some of these shows, with mainstream TV, you can go decades back and it is on video, it's on YouTube somewhere, it's on Spotify somewhere. And then going back to the comment you made about saying you were wrong, I feel a major dilemma with that is a lot of these people that are wrong, if they come out and say they're wrong, then the cash flow stops and then they try to Rob Schneider you, and then that's the end of it.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? And that's where you know where someone's like Carnivore MD is never going to take away that book because that stops the cash flow. Even though he outright knows it's wrong now, he won't take it down. There's a very famous guy, I'm not going to name him, a very, very famous guy who has wrote a number of New York Times bestselling books all about how carbs are terrible for you. And in 2014 or 2015, he was invited to have a debate in the United Kingdom. And he went to the debate, but only under the condition that it wouldn't be recorded. So they didn't record the debate. Now, during the debate, someone asked him point blank. They said, because this guy's conducting his own studies now to try and to prove what he's saying is right. And someone said, if your study comes out and says that you're wrong, will you change your mind? And he said, absolutely not.
Hmm.
Even if the study that he's funding comes out and says that what you're saying is wrong, he wouldn't change his mind because it would stop the cash flow. And this is one of the major issues with society right now as a whole is if being honest stops the cash flow, then people aren't going to be honest. Now, ironically, I think it might have an initial hit on cash flow, but long term, it would actually benefit cash flow. I think initially people might be upset and da da da, but long term, the trust that you build from visibly tearing down what you've built in order to be honest, number one, I think it's better for your soul and like you'll be a healthier, happier person for it. But I actually think from a cash flow perspective, it will be better.
Yeah, there's something that people are drawn to when it comes to integrity. And it, like
Yes.
you said, admitting you were wrong and just, I guess, owning it, right? Like, and over time, I'm 24 and I've definitely made mistakes the last couple of years, but you learn time heals, right? People forget everything and, you know, keep going, right? Keep going. Like
100%.
Alyssa, right? keep going, keep getting better, and you're as good as your last rep.
100%.
Jordan, are you familiar with the transformation and health improvement with Jordan Peterson?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, how did he was only like from what he says he was only eating meat and lobster and lost
Currently,
all the
still
and
present.
lost all this weight and health issues. How does something like that correlate to like a Sean Baker or Carnivore MD where like maybe it works for someone, but then for maybe the majority it doesn't work?
So what's happening here is the weight loss is very obvious and it's not shocking. You cut out
All carbs.
basically every other food group, not just carbs. Like you cut out basically every other food group, and you're just like, how much fucking steak can you really eat in one? Like, you go to a Brazilian steakhouse, it doesn't take long before you're like, all right,
Yeah, I'm
and you're
tapped
probably
out.
done for like the rest of the day. Like you're out. And that's assuming like you don't even eat the other stuff at the Brazilian steakhouse, which they want you to eat, the bread, the potatoes, all that stuff. But like, how much meat can you really eat day in and day out? Your calories are going to be way lower than normal, right? That's number one.
Yep.
So the weight loss isn't a surprise. Makes total sense in the world. It makes all the sense in the world. What people I think are unsure of is like, well, how is it helping these health issues? So there are some health issues that do warrant some form of an elimination diet. Now, what's going on here is there's a time and a place when you should run an elimination diet to see what your body isn't responding to. Sometimes if people have Crohn's, sometimes if people have irritable bowel syndrome, there might be something that they're eating that is causing these symptoms. And the only way they'll know is if they remove everything from their diet and then they slowly reintroduce them. Now, where the carnivore people get it wrong is you can reintroduce foods. And this is why you're supposed to do it slowly. Because if you introduce everything in back at once, you don't know which one was causing it, which one wasn't. But you run an elimination diet, you eliminate your symptoms. Cool. Now let's add in one food. Cool. Feel good. Great. Now let's add another food in. Oh, shoot. Your symptoms came back. Now we know the food. This is how we get to the bottom of what's causing your symptoms. What like Jordan Peterson is talking about is he did an elimination diet and he stayed on the elimination diet. Now, he doesn't have to do that. Now, I also don't know, like, and by the way, like, I love JP. Like, I love JP. I don't agree with 100% of everything he says, and I don't agree with 100% of how he says it, but I fucking love JP. Now, in terms of his lifestyle, does he have a private chef cooking him his steaks and his lobsters all the time? Like, are they traveling with him? Like, that's a very different reality than someone who's at the grocery store and like getting a ribeye every day is super expensive and you've got to cook it and do it all yourself. Never mind, like lobster super expensive. Like it's a pretty wild lifestyle if you think about it. So I mean, now we have to take into the realistic component of what can most people do and what are most people willing to do. And very few people are willing to only eat steak and lobster for the rest of their life. It's just, and I would say that it's probably not, I shouldn't say probably, for the vast majority of people, it's not healthy. There are some people with severe stomach issues and digestive issues that it might make sense to have a very limited diet. That might make sense for a very small percentage of people. But for the vast majority of us whose bodies work and our digestion works, there are many benefits to having fiber and fruit, like, which is wild to me. I never thought when I got into this industry that I would be having conversations in 2024 being like, fruits and vegetables are a good idea. Like I didn't think that would have to be a major conversation, nor that it would be a controversial statement. But because of all this nonsense that we see, like people are actually like, should I be having fruits and vegetables? It's like, yes, motherfucker, you should be having fruits and vegetables. Meanwhile, like you're concerned about fruits and vegetables, but you're taking shots of tequila every night. Like, are you serious? Like, what is going on? It's ass backwards.
A lot of things are ass backwards. And speaking of, the content that so many of us consume, we find ourselves in this world of content here for the last 2+ years, but you've been doing it since 2011. You've obviously spent a lot of time with Gary Vee, having trained him for 3+ years. What did you learn from him, about this world of content, and how did that lead you to where you are today?
So it's a great question. Gary's amazing. He's like a father to me in many ways. I would say, in terms of the world of content, I'll tell a quick story. So me and actually his current coach and his coach before me. So his name is Mike Vacanti. He was his coach before me, and now Mike is coaching him again. So a few months, probably about 6 months after I started coaching Gary in 2016, Gary and I, Mike surprised us. We were all in Florida, and Mike came to one of the workouts, and Mike hadn't posted on social media for a while. And Mike was just having a candid conversation with Gary, and he said something to the effect of, he's like, I don't know. I don't know what to post. And Gary said, say that.
That's so fun. That's perfect.
And Mike was like, what do you mean? He was like, whatever you feel, just say that. And that has completely changed my entire approach to social media, where it's like, whatever I feel, I'm just going to say that. And it's so simple, it's stupid, but I think so much we're trying to curate and we're trying to come up with the perfect thing to say, when the reality is we just need to say what's true and what we feel is right. And it takes so much stress of content creation away. It makes it so much more simple, and it makes it more real. It's just like, I'm just going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to tell you how I feel. And that's it. It's like, and I think if more people did that, we would see much healthier relationships with social media, far less anxiety around social media. I think a lot less of that quote unquote highlight reel that we all talk about, and much more of just like, let's have open, honest conversations. So that when Gary just said to Mike, say that changed my life. It was one of the most important conversations. I wasn't even a part of it. I was just listening. It's one of the most important conversations I ever listened to.
Well, and how did you even get connected with Gary all those years ago?
So it's a crazy story. So I started making content in 2011. And by content, I wasn't not social media. I was like writing website articles. Like Instagram didn't exist. I was writing articles on my website. And when I say an article, it's like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 words. One article would take like a week. It was like 18 to 24 hours of work. It was a very different time. Now, when the name is speed, now back then it was less about speed, and it was more just about like, how great can we make this article? Like, because you wanted to give an in-depth analysis. You know how like some YouTube videos, you watch JP talk for an hour easily, and it's just, you get so much from it. That's like long form. Same thing with podcasts, long form content. That's what my articles were, long form content. But they were, back then, long form articles were everything. Now they're not nearly as important. But I was writing articles, and I was getting like 20 views a day on my website for the first 2 years, and 18 of them were my mom. Like, no one was reading my shit. And in 2012, I wrote an article. To this day, it's one of my least popular, least read articles ever. It was an article about 3 ways to improve your posture if you work at a desk all day. And I got every time someone would comment, I would reply. I would always reply no matter what. Mm-hmm. Someone commented, I didn't know who it was, and they asked me a question on that article, and I replied. And it wasn't just like a thanks. Like I gave an in-depth reply. I hate it when people do like someone asks a question or says something, and then the creator like gives them an emoji, like a fire emoji or a thumbs up, or it's just like, I really took the time to reply in depth. And that was in 2012. Long story short, it turns out that the person who left that comment was Mike Vacanti, who's Gary's coach now. But in 2012, Mike was an accountant in Chicago. Mike ended up leaving that job and moved to New York City in like 2013 for a personal training internship. He met Gary through that internship, and then he became Gary's coach for 2 years. And all throughout this time, Mike had been following me, following my website, following my work, just because he found that article, and then continued to follow me thereafter after I replied to his comment. So after Mike's gig with Gary was up after 2 years, Gary was having a lot of postural issues, some pain issues. And Gary was like, who's going to coach me now? And Mike said, I think I know a guy. I was living in Tel Aviv at the time. And so Mike reached out, and he was like, how would you like this opportunity? And I was like, holy shit, like, absolutely. So I flew from Tel Aviv to New York. I coached Gary for an hour for an interview, flew back to Tel Aviv all within 36 hours. My roommate in Israel didn't even know I was gone. and I didn't hear anything for 6 weeks. So I was like, all right, I must not have gotten the job. Like 6 weeks go by. Like I'm assuming I didn't get it.
Mhm.
All of a sudden I get a text message. It's 10 p.m. in Israel. I was in Haifa at my family's house in northern Israel. And so that means it was like 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. or so. No, it was like 2 or 3 p.m. in New York. I get a text message from a number I don't know, and it just says, "Are you ready?" And again, this
Are
is
you
six
ready?
6 weeks later, 10 p.m. at night. Like I'm not thinking about it. And I just reply and I say, "Who the fuck is this?" And then I get a text message with a picture of Gary shirtless and flexing, and that's how I found out I got the job. And so then
Wow.
within a week, I packed up all my stuff, moved to New York, and I started coaching Gary for 3 years.
What an
What a story,
unbelievable
yeah.
story. Wait, so but like that just shows, in this digital world, you never really know like where one article or one podcast or one post could lead to. And that you're a testament to that.
You have no idea which piece of content is going to change your life forever. And that's one of the reasons I love this story, because it's not a viral piece of content. It was, to this day, one of my least popular, least viewed, least read articles ever. There's probably
But
like,
is it
it's
still up there?
still up there. Yeah, still up there. It's a
Nice.
shitty article, like really bad.
Nothing
But
like the Hawk Tuah girl.
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, what I'll be interested to see with that is I've seen a lot of people go viral like that, and then they crash and burn not long after. Like
Mhm.
I actually think it's better to it's like, I think of going viral like rapid fat loss, and I think of slowly building like sustainable fat loss. And
Interesting.
I actually think that slowly building and not going viral very quickly is a huge advantage, because you learn the systems, you learn you learn how to read people, you learn what type of content does well, you build it up over time. Whereas if you just strike gold early on and you go viral, your perception is fucked. You think this is how it's supposed to go. You don't really know what to do with the massive influx of people. I've seen many people go viral early on and then they crash and burn within a couple of years. Whereas the people who did a slow burn and slowly built over 5, 7, 10 years, those are the people who are massively successful.
Well, and you could say that about, business too. Like no great business was built in a day, month, year. It takes decades, right? And
Correct.
you've been doing it for decades. And I mean, I'm sure you're not even close to where you want to be, but you have the reps, you've put in the work. So when you see people like that, is any part of you, I guess 10 years ago, Jordan, envious at all or not? You now that you've put in the work, you're happy with how it's happened.
10 years ago, of me envious of what?
Of the opportunity to like emerge like that and
Go
be on the
viral.
scene just with a viral clip, a viral podcast, whatever.
I'll tell you what. Uh, I am so like, I'm going the opposite way now. I am at a point in my life where, and I think this comes from getting married, having kids. Like, I don't like when people recognize me on the street.
Yeah.
I don't. It's scary. There are fucking crazy people out there. Um, I'm at a point where I don't want to get more followers. I don't want to grow. Like, I want to spend more time with my family. I want to spend less time working. So in terms of envious of virality, no, because I know there's pros and cons to everything, right? Like there's always good sides and bad sides. No matter what you do, there's always pros and cons. Becoming famous, yeah, I'm not even close to famous for whatever it's worth. I'm not even close. I'm like Z list, Z minus. I'm
But
like
you're closer than those who have like no followers on social
correct.
media. Yes.
And I can tell you, I think there are some people who like it, but I think the people who like it are the people who they just love attention and they want people to know who they are. And now the benefits are, with fame comes the ability to have a really big impact. But I don't think, I should say a public impact, because you can make a big impact without fame, but like you can really change public opinion with simply stating your opinion, which is really extraordinary if you think about it. With that being said, I mean, look at all of these very, very famous people who they make like they don't want paparazzi around them. They don't want people knowing where they live. Like they take unbelievable measures to make sure that people can't get to them. It's that speaks more loudly than the number of followers. That speaks way more loudly to me than anything else. It's like they will do anything they can when they go out. They've got a hat, they've got sunglasses, they don't want people to recognize them. Why is that? It's because it's fucking scary, and it's not what people think it is. It My mom would always say, it's so funny. She'd always be like, I don't want to be famous, I just want to be rich. And like, it's if you have to choose, I would rather choose wealth, because with wealth, like, you can make a huge impact, still give to charity, do wonderful things. But I promise you, chasing fame and chasing followers is such a dangerous game to play. I think if most people knew the negatives that came with it, they probably wouldn't value it as much. And I know there are many people who value a lot of followers. Like, when I meet people and they don't know who I am, like, they'll, hey, what do you do? I'm a personal trainer. I don't tell them about my Instagram. I don't tell them about my, I don't tell them I'm a personal trainer. And what's interesting is I always gauge how they treat me. And if they start treating me differently after they found out what I do and my audience, I'm not friends with that person. If you treat me differently because of my audience size, that's a real problem. And you would be shocked at how many people treat you differently simply because of what they think you might be able to do for them.
Well, Jordan, I had that experience so similar to that over the weekend in Bloomington. Barstool Sports was in town, and as I was on the street on Kirkwood, the main street, Dave Portner walks right past me. And I had a casual conversation, seeing if he wanted any food, chicken wings from our Bloomington restaurant. As we're having the most casual conversation, 20 kids mob us in. Sorry, Dave, can I get a picture? Dave, can I get a picture? It was insane. Literally insane.
And you have to think, like, I like analyzing behavior. Why do they want the picture? Like,
to send it to their family, maybe it's
can post
friends. Yeah, that's all it is.
So they can say, look who I'm at, because to them it's boosting their status.
Totally.
Because they got to meet him. It's funny. I was watching this video the other day. There was a great historical account that posted a video of what people were doing when they went to a Michael Jackson concert before there were cell phones. And you just see everyone just watching and screaming and excited to be a part of the concert. And then now when you go to a concert, everyone's got their phones out. Everyone's filming it and putting it on their fucking Instagram. It's like, put your phone down. Because why are they filming it? Are they going to go back home and watch 2 hours of the fucking thing on the? No, they're filming it so that they can put it on their social media and people can say, oh my God, I'm so jealous that you're at that. That's why they film it. So they can create jealousy and get people to say how great it is that they're there. That's it. It's when people post the picture of Dave. Oh, I'm so jealous you got to meet Dave. Yeah, I got to meet him. Pretty cool, dude. Like, it's a wild concept. And it is always fascinating to me how excited people get to meet a celebrity, to meet someone who is a normal human that has a lot of followers. It's really a fascinating behavioral phenomenon that I still don't even fully understand.
Well, do you ever get that, like, if you go meet someone and you kind of get that, like, wow, like, wow, it's Tom Brady, like, just an example, do you ever get that?
No. If I've seen famous people out, if it's someone that's done something that has made an impact on my life, I'm if they're not surrounded by people, I'll either go up to them and just say, just want to let you know you've made a big impact on my life. Have a wonderful night. Do that. Or if I can, I'll write a note and have the waiter give it to them, like, just so I can make them feel good about what they've done. But I never ask for a picture. I will never, ever ask for a picture. And it's more based on what they've done from their I'll be honest, like someone like Tom Brady, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't care. Like, I truly don't. Like, there are people in the world who I get way more excited when I see a firefighter at my jiu-jitsu academy who literally runs into burning fucking buildings to save people's lives. Like, I'm way more impressed with that.
Yeah.
It's just that, to me, is like, I would rather have you, if someone's like, hey, would you rather have Jeff, who's a firefighter, or would you rather have Tom Brady over for dinner? It's like, Jeff, every fucking time. Like, what are we gonna, am I just gonna sit here and be like, oh man, like, you really, or when that Oakland Raider game,
Yeah.
like what you know what I mean? It's just that's
Totally.
just me. Like when you realize that these people are just fucking people, it's
Mhm.
why are we idolizing them? It's not good. It's
No,
not
and
good.
it makes it way more casual when you could just have a normal conversation, and they probably enjoy it. That you're not like, oh, could I get a picture? That you treat them more as like a human being.
Yes, because
Yeah,
that's what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
and a great point that Andrew Tate made, love him or hate him, is that, you know, he goes out, he hears people just their whole conversation is based off other people's excellence, opposed to going out and creating your own excellence and
Yes.
your own story, right? So you go out, you hear people talking about some artist that's amazing or an actor that's amazing, but
Yep.
you know, no one's pursuing anything, Jordan, right? And you probably notice this all the time. You have people that even you know this position you're in, people like fanboy in a way, they reach out, they're interested, but they're not going after their own pursuit. So when you do experience that, do tell them, hey, like focus on building your body, focus on building your business, whatever the case may be.
Like if someone sees me and they recognize me,
Yeah, or like or just social media engagement as well.
yeah, I mean, so what I'll say is this, like people often come up to me, or if you've listened to my podcast, one thing I'll always say, because I bring a lot of my clients and my like members on my podcast, like if they have questions, they can come and talk to me, and almost always to be like, I'm really, really nervous to talk to you. And it's funny for me to hear that because dude, I'm just such a nerdy, goofy dude. Like I live in a normal house with my normal family, and like, my daughter spit up on me earlier. Like I'm just a normal dude, just
Yep.
very normal. And so when I hear people are nervous, like my go-to line is like, listen, I'm a short, bald, nerdy Jewish guy. You have literally nothing to be worried or nervous about. And I think it's helpful for people, but most of the time people will, and they're very nice and they're very generous, and I really appreciate it. And they'll be like, you've just helped me so much. That's all I want. I just want to help people. So if they like me and they are excited to meet me because I've made a positive impact in their life, amazing. Job done. Like that's all I could ever ask for. But if they're excited to meet me or befriend me because of the number of Instagram followers I have, that's a real fucking problem. And it's I think it's indicative of a bigger problem societally. And so it's funny, like, to answer your question, Merrick, like, am I saying like go out, focus on you? Like I do say that, I think, in my content, but it's funny when I'm out, if I'm out, like whether it's at a party, and when I say party, I'm 33. I'm not doing fucking like I get together. We'll say like we're going to a Shabbat dinner on a Friday night. If someone starts asking me for fitness advice, I'm like, I don't want to fucking talk about this right now. Like, let's just
Yeah.
like this is what I do all like. I don't want to. Oh, like that's the worst. When I was in college and I was really into fitness, and I'd go to a bar and something. Oh, so you're a personal trainer? Like, what do you think of this exercise? I'm like, I fucking hate you. I hate you. Like, I don't want to. It's just
No, no.
it's I just want to be a normal person having normal conversations. So yeah, that's how I handle it, generally speaking.
Jordan,
Totally.
I want to totally switch gears here and talk a little bit about blood pressure and just getting blood work done. Now, you might not be happy to hear this, but I haven't seen a doctor in years. I haven't had blood work in a couple of years,
How
and
old are you?
I'm 23. I
Okay, so
probably
to be
haven't seen a
fair,
doctor since 2020 or so, 20, probably around COVID time.
okay, so it's not good, but I will say this.
Yes.
I have friends who are in their 40s and 50s who haven't seen doctors since like they were 20 years old. So
Mm.
the good news is you have age on your side, but you better get your shit together because, man, when I tell you this shit goes by fast, it goes by fast, and like it creeps up on you.
So how often are you getting your blood work done?
Minimum, I would recommend once a year.
And then how about checking your blood pressure? Because I know you've posted a lot about that.
Got my blood pressure monitor right here. Just,
Look at this guy.
just once a
Oh,
week. Once a week. It's
And what I mean, I'm not even sure how you would read one of those things. I'm pretty sure you have a YouTube video about that, right?
You have YouTube videos, podcasts on
Great.
it. Yeah.
So I definitely like I feel healthy and work out like the bike, but definitely looking at blood work is something I'm interested in, but also not in a rush to do, but definitely should do. Like Merrick and I, for example, got our dad on 10x Health with Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Brecka. And his blood work, we've seen some tremendous improvements in his blood work in terms of testosterone growth and B12 vitamins and stuff. But we're still working on getting him to work out more and getting the physical benefits. So that is what has made me the most curious is like I would want to get my blood work done and have a doctor who doesn't just want to like prescribe you on a bunch of like maybe something because your cholesterol is super high when maybe it's supposed to be that high.
So I can tell you've been listening to some shitty people.
I'm sure. I mean that I feel like somewhat confused and not confused because I was a fan of Carnivore MD and I would say I do eat majority of my dinners are red meat.
Okay.
Yeah, I love fruit. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't eaten vegetables in 2 or 3 years probably. But I never was a fan of vegetables either.
This honestly,
Yeah.
So I'm super glad we're having this conversation. That scares the living shit out of me for you.
That I'm not eating vegetables?
You're not eating vegetables. The majority of your meat is red meat. This is what is so dangerous about social media is first of all, Carnivore MD, you know, he's not like a nutritionist, like he's a psychologist. That's what he went to school for. Anyone can go on and say they know what they're talking about, and people will believe them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can't change what you're doing, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart that it scares the living shit out of me for you in 15 to 25 years. Think how many 70, 80, 90-year-olds do you know who only eat red meat?
Not many. Absolutely not.
None in my
So I'm happy you're saying this because I'm all for, doing what will improve my life, right? So aside from like, do you think eating vegetables would be okay if your diet was protein wise, you switch between chicken, fish, and red meat and ate carbs, rice, potatoes, and then fruits?
Bro, that sounds like an amazing diet.
So basically what you're saying is the only main difference I need to make is not red meat every night and alternate between having chicken and fish.
Chicken, fish. Yeah, have some fruits and vegetables. God forbid, maybe some lentils every now and then. Like, yeah, it's
and I appreciate that.
It's a balanced diet. Now, if we look at never mind like who you've seen, let's look at the longest living populations in the world. The longest living. Who do you know any of like the top 10 longest living?
Japan,
Yep.
The Mediterranean area with Greece.
Yep.
Where is it like the
Italy?
Caribbean?
Italy,
Caribbean in there?
I don't know if the Caribbean's in there. It might actually, it might be. Caribbean might be in there. Sweden is in there. Let's look at Japan, Italy, and Greece.
Those are the big three, I would say.
So if you look at Japan, it's fish, a lot of rice.
A lot of rice.
Yes.
A lot of rice. They have white rice more than anyone else in the world. And so number one, rice, carbs. Oh my, and the carnivore people fucking hate when I bring this up. I'm like, if carbs are bad for you, then why does literally the longest living, healthiest population in the world eat more rice than anyone else? And by the way, this isn't me saying we need to eat more carbs. What I'm saying is we need to stop demonizing these foods and understand rice is very different than Fritos. It's different. They're different foods, and people are lumping carbs into rice and Fritos in the same food group. It's not the fucking same. They eat a lot of fish, they eat a lot of rice and whole minimally processed foods. You can't go wrong with whole minimally processed foods. But so in Japan, we have a lot of fish, we have a lot of rice. They also have a lot of vegetables, and they also have a lot of like kimchi. They have a lot of how come I'm forgetting the fucking word right now? Do you know the word I'm trying to get? Like fermented, a lot of fermented foods. Okay. Also a fair amount of beans as well. So we have that. If we look at Italy, I mean,
That's a little carb heavy for sure.
Super carb
Yeah,
heavy and super wine heavy. But they have a lot
definitely
of
wine heavy.
fish. They have a lot of bread.
Hmm.
They have a lot of pasta. They have a lot of wine,
Olive oil.
a lot of olive oil, a lot of olives, 100%. So now if we look, and that's the Mediterranean diet as well. So what is going on? And I know a lot of these carnivore people like, oh, well, look at like the Inuit and look at the people. It's like, how long do they fucking live? Like, what are we all talking about here? The people with such a teeny tiny amount of cherry picked data are convincing people en masse to stop adhering to the most simple basic nutritional guidelines that you should know by the time you're in middle school, never mind actually learning in a college level in a higher education. And then the discussion you had around, well, maybe my cholesterol is supposed to be that high. No, it
Interesting.
is unbelievably dangerous. Now, the most important thing is your ratio of HDL to LDL rather than the total. Total isn't as important as your ratio, but you need to be getting your blood work checked to check that ratio. And if you're not having any fiber, and if you're not like, or minimal fiber, and the majority of your food, especially protein, is red meat,
Yeah.
you might be great at 23. But what happens at 33 and 43? Like, what happens? This is what people don't understand.
Well,
And
and there aren't, are there many examples of what does happen? Like, how many people do you know who have just eaten red meat for 20 years straight?
so I don't know people who've eaten it for 20 years, but I can show you pictures of people's blood work who've done it for 2 years, and their blood work, they got so much fat in their blood. Let me see if I can find this picture real quick. Let me see one sec. This is wild. This is this. If this picture doesn't scare the shit out of you, I don't know what will. Oh, what's this guy? What's this? Hold on. I'll because there's a lot of these pictures. This is crazy.
Yeah, I'm already a little nervous to see what you're gonna show me.
Okay, look at this. This is
All right,
crazy.
let's see
This isn't this
it.
isn't the picture that was sent to me. You know what blood in a vial is supposed to look like, right?
No, no, I mean, not off the top of my head, no.
You know what blood looks like.
Just like blood, yeah, yeah, just clear, right? I mean,
Liquid.
just yeah,
It's,
liquid. It's
it's like
red.
dark red, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What does that look like?
That's just all what animal fats in from eating red meat,
That's when your cholesterol is
just
so
blocked
high.
up.
This is why blood pressure is so important. Imagine, because that's what's running through your veins. If
When
your
that's when arteries get clogged too, correct?
yes,
Got
your
you.
arteries
Okay.
get clogged, your cholesterol is too high, your blood pressure goes up, and that's when people die
Mm.
like that. Even people who might exercise a lot, even people who might be getting good sleep, even people who don't drink. If you're having too much fat, and especially saturated fats on a regular basis, and you're not having enough fiber, this is what can happen. If you want to see some crazy shit, there's an amazing Instagram page called Carnivore Cringe. It's a page of people who used to do carnivore and had the most severe negative health consequences as a result of it. Go to Instagram, like just read it. It's just people
What's
giving
carnivore? What?
carnivore
Cringe.
cringe.
Okay, I'll look it
It's
up. Check it out.
if I mean, but that picture should scare the shit out of you.
Yeah, Jordan, I appreciate that visual representation. But I got one more question before we wrap this up. A lot of our listeners are in that young man age, right? A lot of males, a lot of 20 somethings, late teens, early 30s. As everyone kind of takes the next stage in their life, you're clearly a man that has figured out life more so than most. What should they look for when seeking a life partner?
Oh man, this is really tough, and it's a great question. And I'm still reeling from the conversation with Evan. So Evan, I'm hoping that you
No,
know
I'm
you
gonna
guys
make some changes and I will be in contact with you for sure.
good. Always know you can reach out to me.
Thank you,
All
Jordan.
right. So in terms of a life partner, this is going to be so controversial. Might as well be talking about politics. So actually, you know what? You know who gave me some of the best relationship advice is Gary. I'll tell you what Gary told me, and we can talk about that and go from there. Um, Gary actually had wonderful relationship advice, and he was giving it to me from the perspective of someone who, like, especially at that point in time, I was grinding and working super hard, and he was like, what you want to look for coming from that perspective is You can either have, and obviously it's a simplification, but I found it to be very true. You can either, what you want to find is you either want to have another quarterback. So like you're a quarterback, if you're like grinding and hustling, like you're the quarterback. So you either want another quarterback, someone else who's doing their own thing and independent and they can do it on their own, or you want a cheerleader, someone who will support you and someone who will do whatever it is you can't do because you're out there being a quarterback. Someone who will like take care of the stuff that you need taken care of and they're happy to do it. That's like what they want to do, not because you put them in their place, because that's what fulfills them. And so generally, especially for people, I would imagine like both Evan and Merrick, like you're working super hard, you're doing a lot. You either want someone who is doing their own shit and also super independent and like they're good on their own, or someone who is just very happy to join in with what you're doing and be your greatest support system. Now, I don't know if I'm not gonna say I don't know. I don't believe that there's only like one right person. I think like there are many right people what for you to find. Like I don't think there's just one person. If my wife heard me say that, she'd be really upset. But like I don't think there's like one right person. I think there are many people that would be wonderful partners for you. What I do know is no one will check off every single box that you want. So like for everything that you need and want in a partner, no one will be able to check off every single box. In the same way, you will never be able to check off every single box for someone else. And it's important to have that humility to understand like we're not perfect. We're not going to be able to check every single box that someone else wants. So there's always going to have to be compromise there. With that in mind, I think it is very important for you to have a very clear idea of what you're looking for and what that might look like in the long term. So I thought when I was younger, probably around 24, 25, I wanted another quarterback. I was like, I want to grind. I want her to grind. Like we're just going to be quarterbacks together. It's going to be so sick. I found that doesn't really work out that well with a family, especially with kids. And so as I got older and I met my now wife, I was like she became my biggest cheerleader. Like she was like, whatever I can do to help with the business, that's great. And like she wanted to be with the kids and be home more. And like granted, like I'm here as well. I work from home, but like she really wanted that to be her role. And it's been so symbiotic. It's been so wonderful. We both help each other out. I'm a big believer, like for example, I know many people like guys are often like, well, if I make the money, it's my money. It's like, nope, it's our money. She has equal access to all of the bank accounts. She has like it's once you get married, you are like you become like one unit. And so she's doing things and taking care of things. Like imagine if she was like, no, you can't pick out your own food. You can't go into the cabinets. Like this is mine because I picked this out and I went shopping for it. It's like that wouldn't make sense. Right. It's like we share the money, we share the house, everything is one, we're one unit. And so for me, it was really learning like for me, I didn't want another quarterback. I wanted someone who would create a more symbiotic, and what you could call this is more of like the nuclear family, where it's like you have one person working, one person who's more focused on the kids. And at least for us, that's been such an amazing blessing. Either way, I think the most important thing, and this is a very overused discussion, but it's communication and honest. You need, when you meet someone, you need to be brutally honest with them. You need to be brutally, and I wouldn't play any games, none of that bullshit. From the very beginning, be like, this is what I want. This is, and we need to be, and you need to be super clear, and you need to apologize when you're wrong, and you need to expect them to apologize when they're wrong. And I think for me, when you establish that from the beginning, you're going to set yourself up for a really wonderful relationship. I'll also say my wife and I were long distance for the first 2 years of our relationship. We only saw each other like once every 6 weeks. And a lot of people say long distance doesn't work. And I always laugh because I'm like, well, I know a lot of short distance that doesn't work. I know a lot of people who like live in the same area as the person that they meet, and it doesn't fucking work out very well. And actually, I've found that long distance was better because we couldn't rely on the physical. And a lot of people will have the physical early on, and the physical will be really good. And it'll be so good that they'll overlook a lot of these major red flags and major things that they shouldn't be putting up with because, well, yeah, but we have really good chemistry. It's like with my wife and I, it's we could only talk, and we got to know each other just through talking. And so that the physical only enhanced that, but it was built on a foundation of communication. And for whatever it's worth, like there were a lot of real issues. Like we had a lot of arguments, a lot of struggles. Like it was very, very difficult, especially early on. I think that's another thing, especially right now, is one of the major issues with social media and the connectivity now is there's always more options, and you can always be trading up. And I want to find someone else, find someone else, find someone else. You'll never find someone to check off every box. And as soon as you try and trade up for maybe someone who's hotter or someone who's whatever it is, like it's a never ending game. You can always keep trading up, and eventually end up realizing that you're probably missing out on some really amazing people, and people end up not pursuing a relationship because they have an argument or whatever it is. It's very important to be very open, very communicative, and understand that. And I would say from the very beginning, like you're not going to check every box for them. They're not going to check every box for you. And I would just have a good idea of, do you want a quarterback or do you want a cheerleader? And once you understand that and what each one entails, you might have a better idea of who you're looking for. And I'll also say, like, again, I thought that I wanted a quarterback, but when it came down to it, I really just wanted someone to support me. And there are pros and cons to everything, like we've spoken about. But when you're the quarterback, from this perspective, the quarterback is the one who's working and bringing in the income. A lot of people might look at that and be like, oh, well, that's not fair. It's like, well, I'm not saying you have to put the other person in their place. Like that's what they're choosing. Like if my wife wanted to go to work, she could go to work, no problem. But also if you're the quarterback, the stress of being the quarterback is now on you. And because you've chosen that, that is now your responsibility to deal with that stress. And you can't put that on other people in your family. You can't put that on you can never use that to guilt. Like you can never, ever, ever say, I'm the one that makes the money. That's what you both chose. And that's what you chose. You can't ever use it against them because that's what you chose. It's a gaslighting, manipulative tactic. So everything that you choose, you have to own up to it and take responsibility for yourself. So take some time and think about it and date different people and see, okay, is this person a quarterback? Is this person a cheerleader? What do they want out of it? And have very open conversations. And I think from there, you'll learn what might be a good choice for you in your future.
Amazing.
That was a way to finish. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate your very honest answer there. I feel like that's a side of you most people don't get to see, given your fitness background and you being vulnerable like that. So Jordan Syatt, what a great honor to have you on the Everything But Politics podcast. And, we'll do it again in the near future, but in the meantime, we're so grateful for you being on our show and going a little overtime. So Jordan, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. And Evan, if you need anything, you let me know.
I appreciate it, Jordan. Thanks, guys.